expected, what is the field that is being matched, and ultimately what are the values that are expected. In this case, if you recollect, we just typed hello druid equals and we didn't care about the value, so there is no match values field. But in later rules you'll see that there's the possibility of actually specifying exactly which value to match. The next things you see are a more complex topic. It's a way to pass settings, setting values rather, to any of your rule engine actions. And in this case, the action is a built-in action called a page dialog, whose sole purpose is to show that a dialog with a URL within it. So that's what this rule did. And just to refresh, let's go right back here. And now that we've seen the rule, see what it does. And so what it's doing here is basically in an iframe, it's displaying the URL of the site. So what I could do real quick now is go back here and just type .netnuke.com and save it, and hit reload here, and you'll see that the .NET site is displayed in that dialog right now. So that's pretty much how the basic request rule works. You can have it match a certain condition, and then you can have it perform an action. In this case, it's a data content modifier action. It could just as easily have been a redirect action. Now let's do something more interesting. The second rule here, that's an example rule, is designed to illustrate how you can easily switch a skin layout based on a query string value or a cookie value. Now I'm using a query string value to demonstrate this because it just happens to be an easy way to demonstrate rules. You aren't constrained to this. You can use things like dates and role membership, etc., which, while powerful, are a bit harder to demo. And so I'm sticking with the query string as the match condition. However, you can do anything else you want. So let's go ahead and uncomment this rule and get rid of the ending comment here. And so at this point, let's look at what we have that's different from what we just looked at. So first and foremost, this rule here, it is still a request type. It just checks to see if the match condition exists, and it's looking for a match field called dk-skin, which stands for dark night dash skin. And here's something interesting. The continue after match equals always. What that means is that the rule engine, after it matches this, is going to continue. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, it's because the engine supports something called aggregation. You might have a rule that is designed to impart the skin, but you might have another rule that imparts a script, and you might have another rule that ultimately modifies some content on the page, and you might have 5 rules like that. So the idea is that the rule engine respects your setting. If you say continue, it'll continue to do its work until the file ends and the rules are done with, or it reaches a rule where continue after match is set to never or is simply excluded. The default is never. In which case the rule engine will stop processing and say, okay, I'm done, and go ahead and process the results. This rule also illustrates something else, and which is the concept of hierarchical rules. Here you'll see that there is a rule that's nested. The Druid rule engine supports unlimited nesting. You can nest rules to any depth that you wish. And a great way to look at it is that rules that are at the same level are a Boolean OR. So it's process this rule or this rule. Now, of course, if you have continue after match, it becomes a Boolean AND. But in general, rules that are at the same level are Boolean OR, and rules that are nested are AND. So in this scenario here, it's saying this rule and this rule. So you would never get to this rule unless this rule here was true. So now let's look at what the second rule is attempting to do. The second rule is also for a request, and it's saying that if there is a match value of left. Now this first rule here just says check if this request exists, this request value exists. This one is more specific. It says if the match value is left, then you need to use this particular skin, and it's a 2-column left mega menu, and at the same time set a cookie with that value through a data content modifier. The next rule says if it's right, then use 2-column right mega menu, and in a similar fashion store it as a cookie. And the last rule says that if it exists, so at this point it would only have gotten to this rule if neither of these were true. Notice that neither of these have a continue after match, so that once example 2-1, which is this rule, or example 2-2 were true, the rule processing would be done. So rule processing of example 2-3 would occur only if these two had failed. And in this case, what it's doing is it's basically setting the value of the cookie to blank, which has the net effect of clearing out the cookie value. So that's what we've got set now. Let's go ahead and enable this rule. And before I go ahead and save, I want to do one more thing. One of the nice capabilities of the rule engine is that it allows you to do a fair amount of debugging very easily. So there's two ways to achieve the debugging. You can set your compilation debug equals true in your web config file. And if you are a developer, you're familiar with that. But if you're not, it's very easy to enable it right here. You can go to any rule, it doesn't matter where, and just add debug equals true. And what that will do is provide you some debugging information when the rule runs. And we'll see how that looks in just a moment. So we'll go ahead and save this. And I'm going to switch right back to my browser. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this from the URL, since we are done with that and we don't want to keep seeing the pop-up dialog there. And the first thing I want to do is go ahead and reload. And now when I scroll down, you're going to see that the Druid rule engine has put some information for us. It's put the execution time that it takes from the very first point the rule engine begins to the end. And it tells us what the actions are based on the enumeration of the rules. So that's the first thing you see, that in this case, really there's nothing that the rule engine is expected to do. You'll next see what are the client capabilities detected. Now, if you're using a desktop browser, these are basically invalid, other than the brand name and a couple of others. But in general, things like the physical screen width, etc., are accurate through the Wurfel client provider for wireless devices. And when the wireless device is false, these tend to not be accurate. So because there are no rules that matched, we don't have much information. But let's now go over to my test page here. And on this test page, I've created a very simple scenario. Let's go ahead and go into view mode so it's easier to see things here. I've created a left column module, a center column module, and a right column module. And this is using the Dark Knight skin. So it's one most people are familiar with. It has a left pane, a center pane, and a right pane. And the idea is that I want to switch from this layout, which is basically the 3-column layout, to a left pane and content pane layout, or a content pane and right pane layout. And that's kind of a good test of the rule engine. So let's go ahead and try this out. We'll put $dk-skin equals left. And sure enough, you see that the layout has changed. In fact, let's just go ahead and look at the layout here. And you'll see that we have a left pane and right pane. So this is a whole different skin layout that has been loaded because of the rule instruction that we provided. Now, this is where the debug really comes in use. Here you can see that rule ID example 2-1 was processed, and it's green, meaning it turned out to be true. And so rule processing ended at that point, and the result was that this particular skin layout was added. In addition, a cookie was added. Now, because the cookie settings can vary quite a bit, right now the debug does not reflect the actual details, but it just shows you that a cookie has been added. So in similar fashion, let's try, now by the way, let's test if the cookie worked. If the cookie worked, we can remove this and try it, and sure enough, our layout does not change. So this is a great way to have a sticky sort of a skin layout for a user. Of course, you can put an expiration date on the cookie, etc., so it's not temporary. Now let's go ahead and change this and say dk skin equals right. And in this case, you'll see that the skin layout has changed to right. And if you scroll down and look at our debug here, you'll see that one of the rules is red. So this is the rule that matched if the skin layout dk-skin matched the query string parameter of left, and in this case it was false, and so it's highlighted as red. But the next rule matched, it was right, and so the result is true. To refresh your memory, the one that did not match is this rule, so it turned out to be false. And then this particular rule here is green, so it did match. So this gives you an idea of how the rule processing occurs. Let's go ahead and do the last thing, which is put this back the way it was by clearing the cookie, and sure enough, all these three columns are back the way they were supposed to be. So that's the skin. That gives you a very brief and idea of the capabilities of Druid. Of course, anything is possible, and really it's left to your imagination what you can do with this rule engine. But before I wind up this video, I'll show you one more example of a content renderer rule that's built in, and that's example number 3. So we'll get rid of this and enable this rule. And what this rule does is basically do two things. First of all, it says if the brand name of the browser is Chrome, and the brand name is one of the capabilities that's included here. If you look at the client capabilities, there's a brand underscore name field here. So that's the one I'm trying to match against. And I say if it's Chrome, then check if the page name, which is what this match type is, matches hello. And if it does, then use the built-in content renderer called Hello World. There's a few built-in content renderers. We've already experienced the content modifier called set cookie. This is a really silly content renderer. It's just there to provide you an example of how powerful the content renderer can be. So now I'm gonna show you what it does. So we can go to the hello page. We'll actually get rid of this because we don't really want that rule to kick in. And we'll go to the hello page, and you'll see that what you have is a hello world page that got rendered with one of my favorite Bollywood videos, which I hope you'll enjoy. But more important, let's look at the source of this page. We are still in .NET Nuke. The URL is of a .NET Nuke page, but look at the output here. It's just a very small amount of HTML markup. This is basically the markup that I configured the hello world content renderer to produce. So you can see how, while staying within the framework of .NET Nuke, we have produced a completely different HTML page, which really unlocks all the capabilities of HTML within your web browser, although that is also possible with .NET Nuke with, for example, an HTTP module or an HTTP handler. You can achieve this kind of thing. But what Druid does is allow you to achieve this kind of result using a declarative fashion. So without going into and messing with a web config file, you can selectively have this kind of output available to users of your websites. So that's basically this video here. Gives you a quick overview of Druid. Hope you like it, hope you download it, play with it, and look forward to your feedback, which you can provide by going onto this website. And it's basically using the Get Satisfaction engine, so you can report problems, ideas, questions, etc. And be sure to like us on Facebook. You can do that on any page on this website. You simply click here and it's available. So thanks again for checking out this video, and hope you enjoyed Druid. Thanks.